The October surprises just keep coming.
From the Battelle studio at WOSU at COSI, this is Columbus on the Record. Joining Mike Thompson this week, Kathy Kandinsky, State House reporter for the Columbus Dispatch, Terry Casey, Republican strategist, and Sam Gresham of Common Cause Ohio.
In a presidential campaign, there is usually an October surprise that affects the race. In 2016, we have the daily October surprise. This week it came during the final debate. With less than 3 weeks to go before the election, Donald Trump needed a memorable, positive performance. Well, it was memorable, but not necessarily positive, largely because Trump refused to say he would accept the results of the election if he loses.
Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit to that principle?
What I'm saying is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Well,
okay?
Chris, let me respond to that because that's horrifying.
The next day here in Central Ohio at the Delaware County Fairgrounds, Trump was equally cagey about accepting the results.
I will totally accept the results of this great and historic presidential election if I win.
Of course, I would accept a clear election result, but I would also reserve my right to contest or file a legal challenge in the case of a questionable result.
Terry Casey, why couldn't he just say, yeah, I'll accept the result?
Well, it's called reality TV. You want to, midway through the show, you want to keep people in suspense of what's going to happen. So in Ohio, he actually was praising John Husted and kind of basically said, yeah, he'll accept the result unless there's something very unusual that happens legally.
One of the things that amazes me, he has no knowledge of symbolism and what a president can say and things that you affect the democratic process or the perceptions of the democratic process. For a presidential candidate to say two things that really upset me: if I get elected, I'm gonna have my attorney general investigate my opponent, and then to say I won't accept the results. I just boggles the mind.
Well, Sam, we're in a different world. And by the way, Mike, you mentioned about October surprises. Remember, we're not yet to trick or treat time. Yeah. So there's bound to be some more tricks and maybe some more treats.
I thought overall this was the best debate we had. I thought it started out strong. I thought Trump started out actually pretty strong, but he missed a lot of opportunities where he really could have gone after Clinton, particularly on the email issue. He got bogged down talking about election results. He got bogged down talking about his relationship with Putin, which, you know, he kind of got sidetracked as the debate wore on, and it kind of undid any I just thought he missed a lot of opportunities there.
But this debate did have, I think, the most substance of the three, because on some of the things like the Supreme Court, on abortion, they actually got down to talking about important details and differences. And Chris Wallace
really did make up facts in the whole abortion.
Yes, he did.
I mean, the whole
the helicase
aborted days before they're going to be born. That's not accurate. That's not true.
Well, it's not very common, but it can happen legally, and that's one of the questions
of
whether
they did still speak about issues, which was good until and you just kept, as you were watching it. I mean, you just kept waiting, like, okay, when's the wheels going to fall off? When are the wheels going to fall off?
This is really a historical lesson, not only for the female standpoint, but what the Russians have intervened in our democratic process. I mean, it just boggles my mind again. And what is history going to say about this election from all those standpoints?
Well, there's also the reality TV thing, which is very different, because in some ways we could be on this show complaining that it's so boring because it's Jeb Bush or John Kasich versus Hillary Clinton, two people that are both somewhat insiders. But part of it this year, I mean, whether it's Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump, they both represent people who have the outsider view, and there's a lot of people still in this country, people view the direction of the country as in a negative direction.
But, you know, Trump could have scored really big on that. When he started off and it was like, I'm a change agent, I'm going to turn Washington upside down, I'm going to change the way we do things. He tapped into something in this country. Yeah. There's a lot of people that want that change, but he couldn't deliver. He couldn't come through with the details of the plan, and he got sidetracked on all these tangents that too many people thought were bizarre. He just could never turn anything from it.
Terry, you've been involved in debate prep. Sam, maybe you have too, but you have is that just a lack of preparation, or is it just arrogance and ego and just him being himself that would prevent him from capitalizing on questions about the Clinton Foundation and accepting money from Saudi Arabia, which doesn't treat women well, and things like that, which he was real. Those are key issues that he could have taken advantage of.
Well, he's not a practiced politician, and practiced politicians understand both every word you say is very important, and also you've got to be more disciplined in staying on track, because politics, people don't appreciate it, but being disciplined in both the practice, preparation, and execution is very important.
Going into a debate, you have broad strategies that you want to apply, okay? And under those strategies, you have different tactics that you can apply. If A happens, I got 1, 2, 3 I can do. And you practice like she did on that 30-year thing when she rolled out all those things that she was doing. Dave, you practiced those things.
Yeah.
And when they provide you an opportunity, you roll them out. He has none of that.
Because he hasn't practiced.
No.
She turned those questions about the emails into a discussion on Putin and Trump's
Yeah.
relationship on
The
Putin.
puppet.
Now, depending on what side you're on, you'd say she pivoted or she succeeded in deflecting that issue.
Yeah.
She was prepared.
One of the things that's happened here in Ohio is the split between the state Republican Party and Donald Trump. Kathy, it just got worse last weekend. I mean, what is going on there? What might the impact be?
It's unfortunate for the Republicans because we're 3 weeks out from the election, and the Trump campaign does not have a good ground game here in Ohio, and they need the Ohio Republican Party to help them get the vote out. Unfortunately, there's a rift between the Republican Party chairman, Matt Borges, and the Trump campaign, which I guess Borges seems to be to blame because he was mocking them and had some kind of fake Twitter account that was kind of making fun of their Ohio campaign chairman. So Trump called him out on it, and it's embarrassing and it's unfortunate for the Republicans this far out. Now, some question, why would Trump even bother? Because he needs them. So what if they're making, this is kind of inside baseball stuff. Is anybody really paying attention?
Well, that's one of those reasons why what you put on Twitter and certain other Facebook accounts, you ought to be careful and you ought to think about
It's going
it.
to be read. It's going to be read and reread and hacked and all
but
kinds of stuff.
Kathy raises another politics for us old politicians. We forget stuff, because I need you. You can call me all sorts of names, but until this thing is over, I need you. His people don't understand how to do. Plus, they don't have another thing. We have relationships, so we understand people. His people are all new. They don't know people in Ohio.
Well, Bob Paduchik, who's the statewide campaign manager, is very experienced and has done a lot of Ohio things, but he's not totally in control of the Ohio campaign because a lot of it, the ultimate campaign manager for Donald Trump is Donald Trump. Right. And so he kind of does a lot of things off the cuff.
Undercuts his own people?
But
well,
Intentionally or unintentionally.
he doesn't empower them. If you remember, he's had a few different national campaign managers.
Remember, Matt Borges was a big supporter for John Kasich.
Yep.
And John Kasich, of course, has been out this week and in the past talking about mistakes he thinks Trump's made about the rigged election. He's just, countering on some things. So there's an uneasy relationship there to begin with.
Yeah. But in the bigger picture, most of that's inside baseball.
Sure.
It's mostly what the voters feel, and they don't like, to be honest, either candidate, and they've got to pick out which one bothers me less.
So will the party still get its machine going to try to help Donald Trump win Ohio?
Absolutely. If you look at the Portman campaign, which is doing very well, and the Portman campaign, a number of other campaigns, people are seeing Republicans doing well. So the voters are differentiating. Yes, there's these people running for president, but then there's other people, and they understand the
But as far
difference.
as the presidential race here in Ohio, it is tied. It is a toss-up, and Trump needs every
field
vote.
organization.
Yes, he needs a field organization.
Kathy, you
to
said
do that.
something a little earlier, and I want to come back to that. I don't believe there's a such thing as an outsider or the image of the nationalistic outsider. I'm going to change government. The worst person on God's earth to change government is an outsider because they don't understand how government really works. If you're going to change government, you need somebody who understands it. I understand in people's mind, they like the idea of this unvarnished, innocent person who cares about me. But I don't want a innocent dove who doesn't know how to fight.
You don't, but a lot of people talk about Trump's success in the business world as, well, if he's so successful as a businessman, why can't he succeed in government? There's a lot of people that buy into that, though.
And Sam, I'll take your mention about an insider who's for change, and you that is an endorsement of John Kasich, because was part of his message and could be his message in the future.
An awful lot of people try and run as an outsider, Sam.
I know they do. But for the public, that's stupid. and they're naive to believe that.
Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
I
It was
read
a
the
very,
book and saw the
it was a very
movie.
popular movie. Very popular. Trailing badly in the polls and falling further behind, Donald Trump says the election system is rigged. First by what he calls a biased and terrible media, but he does not stop there.
But they even want to try and rig the election at the polling booths where so many cities are corrupt. And you see that. And voter fraud is all too common. And then they criticize us for saying that.
Trump offers no evidence of rigging, no evidence of voter fraud, and among those criticizing him for his claims, fellow Republicans.
People have lost faith in their institutions, whether it's politics, media, the justice system. I don't want them to lose faith in their democracy. Yeah. Our system is not rigged. Our system works very well. We make it easy to vote and hard to cheat in Ohio and across the country, and people should have confidence in it.
What is he trying to do, Kathy? He's trying to fire up his base? Is he trying to give himself some cover in case he loses?
My personal opinion is it's a sore loser tactic, that he knows he's going to lose and he's trying to create an excuse for it. But it's really turned off a lot of people. A lot of people don't, as you had some, John Husted, John Kasich, Governor Kasich came out this week, said it was tantamount to saying we hadn't landed on the moon. People are really, getting fired up about it. I suppose it could affect voter turnout, depress, I would think, the Republican voters perhaps more. But I think it's a Hail Mary. I think he knows he's going to lose, and I think this is going to be his excuse. I think it also draws some attention to his concession speech when and if he ever makes it, that some people are speculating that's when he's going to announce his next big venture.
But when he was in Delaware in an interview with Colleen Marshall, he went out of his way to praise John Husted and Ohio. And I was also quoted this past week in the Dispatch saying to rig the election with all the safeguards and protections there literally would be mission impossible. So you can make movies with Tom Cruise.
But why does he keep saying it, though?
Well, I also think it's the imprecise. He believes things are rigged, like the media, and then he paints with a broad brush and doesn't realize that you got to be more precise in politics how you aim your bullets.
Well, Terry, this is one of those great liberals in my young age. I spent a lot of time studying this because naively I believe that the election was rigged. And I spent time studying this. I spent 2 years in the election being a poll watcher, being at the place where the vote comes in, understanding the machine. And as a liberal, it's virtually impossible to do that.
Well, and I've done recounts in over nearly 50 different counties on the ground in Ohio. And when you know all the parts of the system and how it works, it's really very refreshing. It's not always perfect, but generally we have a very good system. And the great thing in Ohio, every board of elections is equal Democrat and Republican in staffing and the board members.
But over the past 10 years, some Republicans, not all, but some Republicans have been saying voter fraud is real, voter fraud is here. We need photo ID, we need voter ID at the polls. That's why we need all these restrictions on voting. Isn't this the end result of that, having a presidential candidate say voter fraud is real?
Well, election day and how the votes are actually done and counted are very different than voter registration. We've had cases in Franklin County. I remember back in 2010, there was one house in Lawrence County where 50 people requested absentee ballots from one house.
That's 50 people out of how many, though?
But it happens around Ohio, and you've got to be vigilant.
Doesn't that lead to Donald Trump saying
he's absolutely right?
He's absolutely
right. The Republican Party has used the electoral system as one of their whipping boys to get their people to come out. They have used that system to say that we need to defend it, we need to do all these things. Husted himself has put all these oppressive things in place to depress the black vote. So don't say that. Mike's 100%
right. We have so many days of early voting, and he actually mailed out to everybody, hey, you can vote by mail.
But you can't have it both ways.
We don't. It's easy to vote in Ohio. Sam, quit complaining.
You can't complain about the system and then say it's fine.
When New York State, they only allow you to vote on election day. They don't allow you to vote early. Why doesn't Hillary fix that?
Trump has put forward as to why, when he pressed about why the election is rigged, he said, I thought it was one of the funniest things he said was because Hillary shouldn't be allowed to run. Yeah. I don't know if you take that seriously or not, because the media is biased. That's another excuse he's had. But the actual voter fraud, voters committing fraud, is what he hasn't been able to provide.
Can I support your profession? How do you believe, as a presidential candidate, you can attack the press? You've outlawed them from coming to your meeting. You won't give them any information. And they're supposed to like you?
It's been happening for decades, Sam.
And
It's called
Sam-
shooting the messenger.
We're used to it.
And Sam Hillary likes the media so much she doesn't do news conferences
Yeah, I
with
would say
them.
Hillary's not
not a
that
big
much of
fan
a
of the
friend
media
either.
She's smarter than he is.
She hides her disdain a little more,
Right.
that's all. WikiLeaks, speaking of media, WikiLeaks continues to reveal more insights into the Clinton campaign and raise more questions about her stances on critical issues. Among the embarrassing emails to surface this week, one separated possible vice presidential candidates into, quote, food groups based on their race, gender, and profession. Another email included a portion of a speech in which Clinton told Brazilian bankers she supported open borders in the Western Hemisphere. She says she was just talking about the open transfer of energy. Sam Gresham, these are important things. However they came to light, these are important things for the voters to consider when they listen to what Hillary Clinton says on the stump and then what may have been said in private.
I agree with you there, but they are important things, but the substance and the complexity of it. First point, how do you know what was said in WikiLeaks really covers what was said?
And Sam, I'll answer that question. If those were made up, leaked emails, Podesta would have been right out there saying, here was the original and here's how they changed it.
Poppycock.
They don't say
I've been
it.
in enough campaigns
No.
where we manufacture it, not emails, but false memos and letters that said one thing that the candidate had said. Now, come on now.
Believe me, if these were forged,
you've done it.
Podesta would have been out there with the evidence to prove
we
it.
have done it. And we've tried to embarrass candidates with false materials. And the great thing about once you have...
What have you put out?
I'm not going to go back to it. Once it's out there...
Sam, I'm shocked. I'm
Okay,
surprised
Terry,
you engaged in
don't
those
be
things.
so naive now, or play like you naive. I can tell some things that you've done.
Well, we saw it in 2000 with the famous memo that got CBS in trouble about George W. Bush and his National Guard service.
duty,
It was a forge.
And what they found out is that the typewriter that was made at that time was too new of a typewriter to be paper back then. So no, cut that out. We've done it. My problem is the historic significance of a foreign country intervening in your democratic process is being overlooked here. This is not funny.
Democrats aren't overlooking that, using that to shift attention away from what was actually said in those emails.
Right.
And in a way, with all the emails, we're seeing the real Hillary and
You
what
can't
she's really
believe
about.
that. You can't. You're
No,
naive. You want to believe it.
No,
Because you're on the other side. But I'm going to be objective. I know what you can do with materials. I know what you...
Sam, you're
Well,
just
at the very
trying to
least-
change
at
the
very
subject from the
least,
real
these emails raise
Hillary.
important questions about potential quid pro quo, and other issues about her behavior and preference giving when she was Secretary of State. So there's all kinds of excellent issues being raised in this. Unfortunately, or fortunately for the Clinton campaign, is you have the issue of who's releasing them, raising concerns, and then you have Trump going off on all these other topics that's kind of overshadowed the importance of these emails. In any other election, the press would be all over these emails. This would be the leading news of the day, but not this election.
And there's no real big, these are kind of all minor stuff. It's internal campaign stuff. Of course they put vice presidential candidates into categories. They may not call them food groups, but you have business people, you have women, you have people of color that you consider the merits of all those
And
groups.
Sam, I want to say something nice about Hillary. To her credit, she was smart enough to destroy 33,000 and bleach clean them.
Well, back to the same issue we had before. Never put it in writing, right?
That's
I mean,
right,
is that
yeah.
the lesson today? Never
I've been
put
in
it
the park so many times and had long walks with people. You know why?
You like the birds and the geese and the pigeons?
You don't want to put it on a telephone, and you don't want to put it in writing. Come on.
But the Russians might have those secret microphones that could pick up those conversations.
I've done my best.
You got to write a book, Sam. I want all these secrets here. All right, our last topic. It did not matter that 12 to 15 points separate them in the polls. Ted Strickland and Rob Portman held two spirited debates this week, including Thursday's final forum in Cleveland. The two went head-to-head over their party's nominees for president, the heroin epidemic, ISIS, and the vacancy on the Supreme Court.
There were many of Barack Obama's nominees who I found were not qualified for the court and couldn't support, but many I did support, including his appointments to executive offices as well as to the court. I look at each one on the merits, Karen, and that's what we have to do. So no, I don't agree that we should automatically block nominees.
He said, I don't agree that we should automatically block a nominee. For months, he has blocked Judge Garland. He said this man should not have a hearing or get a vote. He has disrespected the president and he has failed to carry out his constitutional obligation.
Sam Gresham, 2.5 weeks to go. Ted Strickland trails by double digits, at least 12 points. Will these debates make a difference, help him close that gap?
I think a lot of people are disappointed in Ted Strickland's campaign. I think if the campaign had been closer, it would have made a difference. Now, I'll make a very bold projection. If there is a tsunami, and let me say a tsunami constitutes two components. One, Republicans in Ohio don't turn out, and that Democrats in Cuyahoga turn out twice their numbers, Portman could lose.
But Sam, I don't think you went to weather forecasting school, and we don't have many tsunamis in Ohio. Believe me, what I hear in Cuyahoga County, just like when he lost for governor in 2010, the excitement is not up there for Ted Strickland. And also, you're going to be seeing rolling out in the next week or two, much has happened in New Hampshire, talking about check and a balance. We need a senator of a different party than maybe the president as a way to check and balance the White House.
That's mythical.
In New Hampshire, to use that example, it's a tighter race, but Ayotte has dropped in the polls since Trump's videotape, thing with Billy Bush has come out. That's not going to have effect here in Ohio, you don't think?
No, because the difference, Ted Strickland just has never got his campaign going. He hasn't figured out what his issues. And to the credit of the Portman folks, they've run a great campaign. And when you look at the polling data, and I looked at it before doing this show, Ted is upside down. His negatives are much higher than his positives. And Portman's managed to keep his positives higher, and he keeps on the offensive against Strickland.
I will agree with you to this point. I think the young man, Senfield, that he ran against, probably would have run a better campaign and probably would have had Portman on his heels. But now, come back for a moment. I don't think this is over by a long shot, that Portman is a gimme. I don't.
Double digits is almost impossible, and you look at the undecided has shrunk so low. There just isn't any movement, and Ted Strickland still can't find any issue to talk about because nobody knows who Garland is, and arguing about Garland's appointment at the Supreme Court doesn't excite Ohioans.
It comes down to turnout, and if Trump continues to put his foot in his mouth and something worse comes out over the next 2 weeks, and his supporters don't come out, and it's mainstream Republicans get so turned off they don't come out, that could tighten this race up a bit.
That was a construction of my tsunami now.
Well, that's your theory, but the problem
that's
is...
the only way. I think what Sam's saying is that's the only way Strickland wins.
That's right.
Yeah,
and
if it's a wave election.
Yeah, but I'm still saying your weather forecasting abilities aren't that good on tsunamis.
I'm a Christian.
We can always dream and hope, right?
Well, Sam, why hasn't Ted Strickland been able to catch fire?
Ted,
he's a likable guy. He was a governor.
No, he's not. He's not a likable guy. He's an interesting man. He has had perennially a problem with the African-American community in Cuyahoga County. If you remember, the governor only lost by 2 percentage points, and the problem that he had is he couldn't make that connection to the Democratic African-American structure in Cuyahoga County. He is a nice guy, but I've been in meetings with him too, and he's a nice guy, but he doesn't listen to his staff, first of all, and he doesn't make personal relationships. He's not a personable guy.
And up in Cuyahoga County, they viewed him as a Southern cracker because they remember some of his positions when he was a congressman from Southern Ohio.
I wasn't going to go there now.
I understand, but in the truth and honesty, we're just trying to share.
I think Portman has outworked Strickland. I think when you were talking about the churches up in the Cleveland area, I was up in Cleveland on a presidential story talking to pastors, and several of them mentioned Portman coming to their churches.
Well, let me say to you, my pastor.
I think he's worked hard in that part of the state.
My pastor endorsed Portman of my church. Now, we all went crazy, but evidently Portman worked him, okay?
That's to the senator's credit.
He's outworking. I mean, I think he's worked hard for it.
In my initial comments, he's running a better campaign. Didn't I say that?
Oh, much better. Yes.
I'm surprised he hasn't been able. Ted Strickland's not been able to at least raise more money than he has to get on TV.
That's the confidence or the lack of confidence that people have in him.
Well, and part of it is they spent a whole bunch of money early on, and by August they could see it wasn't moving the needle because Ted part of Ted's whole problem, nice a guy as he is, at 75, how do you tell people, well, by the time I'm in my 80s in my second term, I'll have some seniority and can help Ohio? That doesn't connect.
All right, let's get to our weekly off-the-record comments. Final predictions, parting shots. Sam Gresham, you're up first.
The most important election coming up in November in Ohio and in Franklin County is the Columbus school levy. people really need to look at that levy and understand its importance, because this is a critical watershed for city schools. They will need that support. So go take a look at it. If we don't pass it, we're going to set us back. If we pass it, we move forward.
Well, since Sam mentioned that, it's an 18% increase in your property tax, but my main prediction is there's going to be a lot of ticket splitting, whether it's Portman, but also I think in the county prosecutor's race, Ron O'Brien is going to do very well, because people understand if you want to be prosecutor and you've never been in a courtroom, how can you be prosecutor when you'd be an amateur and try to get on the job training?
Kathy.
Well, I'm glad to have something not to talk about that doesn't have to do with the elections. It's got to be the Cleveland Indians. I'm so excited they're going to the World Series. They haven't won since 1948. I think this is their year. It may take all 7 games. Is that what they play, 7?
Yes, if necessary.
Well, I think it will be necessary, but I think they're going to make it this year. It's just a great year to be a Cleveland fan.
And is it okay in political correctness to say we like Chief Wahoo?
We like Chief Wahoo.
Good.
Although I do, well, they have been wearing. I do think that Chief Wahoo's days are numbered.
Probably by
And
the
the
time you
Boston Red
retire.
Sox lost, right?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
But you know, there are a lot of Boston Red Sox on the Cleveland Indians and the Chicago Cubs if they
Does
make
that mean
it.
you
So
can root for them?
I don't know who to root for.
Cleveland.
Cubs since 1908, Indians since
From
1948.
Chicago, go Cubs.
Go Indians.
I just want to say thank you to the folks who showed up to our third Politics at a Pint at Seventh Sons Brewery. Thank you to them as well for hosting a great event. It was a great event. Terry was there, Sam was there. He had a good time, talked some politics, enjoyed some pints, and we hope to do it again maybe after the election. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online, Facebook, Twitter, and our website, WOSU.org. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.